Hello, and welcome to today's episode. We have a really exciting guest joining us. For those of you who are just tuning in, we are Concord AI Solution, and we specialize in helping small businesses scale their revenue through the power of AI agents. So if you want to automate the busy work, close more leads, and run a more leaner operation, make sure to follow us. Today, I'm sitting down with James Kattz, co-founder and CEO of Illumination Marketing, an award-winning digital marketing agency out of Houston, Texas. With over 20 years of experience, James helps businesses grow their revenue through SEO, PPC, web design, video, and more. James, welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Let's jump right in. Tell us about your origin of your Illumination Marketing. How did it all start?
Origin of Illumination Marketing, that's a loaded question. So as you mentioned in the opening, I've been in marketing and branding for 20 years. I've worked in all different types of industries and all different types of roles. And my wife and I were, it was about 2016, 2017, where my wife and I were working for the last company that we both worked for actually before we started our business. And it was a great experience. But at that point, we were living here in Houston and we have an autistic daughter. And anyone who has an autistic child knows there's probably about 3 places in the entire world that they'll actually eat. And one of those places was called the Houston Texans Grill. And it had everything that you could possibly want, right? And anyway, so we go up there and our daughter's going to eat one day and she runs up to the door and my wife and I were trailing behind because we're not running anywhere. And she just tries to open the door and it's locked. And we're like, oh no, what's happening? And so we finally make our way up to the door and there's just a sign on the door that says, thank you for the last 5 years. We've gone out of business.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, my daughter being about 10 years old and autistic at the time didn't understand. And she's like, I want to go in there. I want to go eat. And why can't we go eat? And we're like, well, the funny thing about this, and we had to explain to our daughter about capitalism at a young age when she wasn't ready to hear it yet. But we went to another one of her favorite restaurants right down the street. My wife and I got talking and we go, why did this business go out of business? They had everything you want. They had the NFL branding. They had a great location, a great bar, a great menu, great staff, great everything. So why did they go out of the business? And then it dawned on us and we figured out that they just didn't do any marketing. And if they would have done marketing, they'd probably still be in business today. And that's kind of when the light bulb went on and Illumination Marketing was born, was in that moment, because we figured that we had the skills of doing this for, 12, 15 years at that point, a piece to be able to help that business stay in business. And so that's really what started us on the path of Illumination Marketing, was just that one experience and a couple others combined with it. But that was the major driving force.
Thank you so much for sharing that personal story. And that obviously resonates with all of us, right? Like we can relate, of course, I don't have an autistic child, but I am a mother of children. So I can completely understand when you have a special needs child, how that entire thing can, literally change your perspective on everything you're doing. So yeah, that was pretty cool. And yeah, marketing is the key, right? So now going back to, you said you have spent over a decade or more in corporate marketing before going out and starting your own company. What was the hardest part of making that leap?
Just having the faith to do it. So I was a marketing executive in the healthcare industry when we decided to start our own company. And my wife had quit her job at that point. I was making 6 figures a year. I was doing, financially well. And we decided, it was time to start a new adventure. And so we had gone out and there was a local Mexican restaurant that we really liked and we tried and we pitched them on doing this service before I quit my job. And so they signed on with us, but it wasn't for a lot of money at that point. It was, I think, $1,400 a month and then 300 of it or something along those lines was in gift cards to eat at the restaurant. So it was like $1,100 a month. That doesn't pay a mortgage, right? So it took a lot of faith to go, okay, we sold the first one, so we know we can do this. And we have, 15 years of corporate marketing experience. So we think we can translate it to small businesses, and it's just making the leap. So that was by far the hardest part, was not having a fallback plan and going, man, if I don't figure this out in 30 days, my mortgage doesn't get paid. That's a very scary thing. But it also, if you ever want to really make progress quickly, put your back against the wall, because you will figure out how to be resourceful in a heartbeat. So it's not always about resources. It's always about resourcefulness. And this is what we still tell our daughter to this day. So, and that was definitely one of those situations. So the hardest part was having the faith to make sure that it would, or to believe that it would all work out.
That is a really bold thing to do. Like all small business owners, I'm one of them myself. that is the hardest part, right? Because like you're like, I'm living in this comfortable lifestyle. I have my corporate job, my mortgage is paid for, my kids are going to college, all of this stuff.
Mhm.
And then you're like, well, I want to start my own business. And how do I do that? Right. And yeah, so congratulations for, believing in yourself and taking that first step, to really saying, yep, we can do this. So that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
excellent. And it worked out. Like it's like almost 10 years later, you're still doing great.
Yeah, and my wife was the driving force on that one. It was her idea to start it. It was not mine by any means. I'm like, I'm living this comfortable life over here, and she said a lot of things about me and my character and who I was and where I was going that I was not comfortable to hear, but they were the words that I needed to hear. And that's the perfect thing about my wife, who's also the co-founder of our business, is that she'll tell me the things that I need to hear when I need to hear them. And it was the exact thing that pushed us over the edge to achieve great things because you never achieve more in the comfort zone, right? Comfort zone is where ambition goes to die. So if you want to be ambitious and you want to have better things in life, you have to take that leap. And there's no way to know without doing it too, right? That's literally the only way to know if your decision will pay off is if you do it. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. You really need that push, right? Like that partner to really get you going, whether a spouse, a friend, or business partner, co founder. So, yeah, this is great that your wife really knew how to press those correct buttons and get you going. So,
yeah, yeah,
congrats to
absolutely.
her.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's worked out in our favor so far. So
absolutely. Absolutely. Let's talk about the business today, right? So, Illumination Marketing is a full agency, full service agency. You do SEO, PPC, video, web design. How do you decide which service to lead with when you're talking to a new client?
yeah, that's a great question. And the answer to that question really just depends on the industry that they're in and the problem they're trying to solve. And so this is the conversation we have with people every single week because they go, what should I do? Should I do social media or should I do SEO? Like, which one's going to be better for my business? And I take them down this path because there's two drastically different forms of marketing. The first is going to be interruption marketing. So it's somebody who's on social media and they're just scrolling through their phone. They're like, ooh, cat video. And they keep scrolling. And then they're like, ooh, food at this restaurant. And then they see your ad and they're like, wait, what was that? And they scroll back and go, huh, cool. And then they keep scrolling to the next cat video and you have to hope that they remember to come back later. That's interruption marketing. You're interrupting them in their day. The second part of it is intent marketing. And that is a lot of more of what we do, which is the SEO pay-per-click. So if somebody knows that they have a problem and they're looking for someone to solve that problem, they're active in that process. We want to show up when they're looking for it as the solution to that problem, which is why SEO and PPC works a little bit better for businesses, depending on what kind of business it is. So we take people down this path. We ask them this question first. Do people know about your product? If they do, great. That leaves us something. As an example, do we need an HVAC person? Yes, people understand that they need HVAC. They don't have to discover what HVAC is. Versus something like, hey, we have this brand new product that we developed to help with baby diapers. Great. That's an excellent product that can make a lot of money, but people don't know about it yet. So you have to have two different types of marketing, right? And so that's the first question. Do people know what it is? Or are they actively looking for that solution? Because if they are, the intent marketing, you're probably going to get more dollars out of that side of things than the interruption marketing. If they don't, interruption all day, every day, right? You have to introduce the idea. And that's what advertising is just built on, right? And we have a fun little math equation that we've put together, which is reach times frequency times messaging equals effective advertising. And so that's where that side of it goes. So how do you decide what you want to do and which one is best? It's really answering that question and going forward from there.
Excellent. Yeah. As you were speaking, I'm trying to visualize in my mind, like, when I am actually looking for someone, what is my first step that I do? Right.
Mhm.
And obviously, as all adults, we're always on social media scrolling through videos. Some restaurants, you will see it. But of course, that's not going to be on my list of let me go out to eat this week. You know what I mean? But most likely, if let's say I have a landscaping issue, I'm not going to start with social media. I'm going to start with Google, right?
Mhm.
And that's so even like from a consumer perspective, that's what you're doing. So this is why I think what you're explaining works better for businesses and again, what the problem that they're trying to solve.
So that very first business that we took on was a Mexican restaurant here in Houston. They were great. They were fantastic. And we helped them raise their revenue 23.3% in the first month we started working with them. We helped them double their revenue within 12 months, and we helped them open two more locations within 18 months. And so it was really, really effective. And the way that we did that was primarily through social media and getting word out there. And the reason it works so well for restaurants is it's such a high impulse type of buy. So if we put 7-time award-winning margarita out here, people go, man, I kind of want to try that. And it's a Friday night and we've targeted them at the right time, 2 hours before they get off of work. So we start to build that desire up. People go, you know what? I am going to go try that margarita tonight. It's been a long week. And that's how we raised revenue amongst other ways, right? And so that's why it worked really, really well. But as an example, if someone has a leak coming through their roof or something like that, they need to call a plumber. And they're not going to go to social media to look for a plumber. They're going to go to ChatGPT or they're going to go to Google. Google's probably still the trusted source right now, right? And so it's really just the problem. Do people know that they have a problem? Are they aware that that problem exists? And are they aware that there's a solution for that problem? And that's how you kind of start the whole process.
So you actually kind of covered my next question, because that was exactly where I was going to get into, right? The whole blended search strategy. And I think you kind of covered the couple of different scenarios that you just discussed. So thank you so much for doing that. So we're just going to move right along into AI and the future
Blended
of
search is a little
marketing.
bit different though, right? So here's the thing, what we call blended search in our approach to marketing. So blended search is a thing between pay-per-click and SEO. They're like king and queen. They work really, really well together. So SEO, what we've seen, it's actually 66% of our revenue right now for our agency. It pays off the best over time, but Google is really slow to trust. And especially living in an AI world where they're flooded with AI content and low quality content, their crawlers can't keep up with everything that's going on. So SEO is getting harder and harder to do, yet it's still the main driver of businesses, i.e., remember that HVAC company we talked about, or that plumber? If they're number one in the Google Map pack when someone's looking for someone who has an emergency leak, guess what happens? They hit that call button and they call that person gets the business as long as they don't screw it up in the sales process. And so that's really, really important. But what happens while you're waiting for that 12 or 18 months in order to get to number one, right? Something has to happen. And that's where pay-per-click really comes in, right? So pay-per-click will start driving you leads from day one, where SEO is going to take 12 to 18 months, 6 months if it's not so competitive or in a less competitive market. And so as pay-per-click is going up and SEO starts going up, at some point, SEO goes up higher and it overtakes your pay-per-click, which is going to be kind of capped at your advertising spend. And so that's why they work so well together as a blended search approach, where if someone's only doing pay-per-click, great, it'll work. If someone's only doing SEO, great, it will work. But if you want to escalate your revenue a lot quicker, it's going to be using both of them together.
Both of them together. Yeah.
And I like to use this as kind of a metaphor for it, right? Pay-per-click is like having a job. It will pay you every single week. SEO is like having investments. It will not pay you tomorrow, but in 10 years from now, it'll give you more money than you'll ever make having a job. And that's kind of what pay-per-click and SEO are. And they work really, really well together. They feed each other if you do it the right way.
Thank you so much for simplifying that. I think that was pretty cool to like kind of hear that, PPC, pay-per-click, immediate results, SEO, long-term growth. And I really like your analogy between regular paycheck versus long-term investments. Thank you so much for simplifying that. Now let's getting into the AI and the future of marketing, right? You've been speaking lately about how SEO is changing in the age of AI search, right? What does that shift actually looks like for a small business owner right now?
Yeah. So the problem with AI, it's an incredible tool, but it doesn't replace people yet. Although there are softwares and things that are getting there. But the problem with AI is garbage in, garbage out. Meaning, if you don't give it the right prompts, you don't get the output that actually moves the needle. And so most people aren't aware of all of the things that need to go into something like an SEO work, right? And that there's 100 checkpoints that you have to get to a perfect article. And instead they just go, write me an article on being a plumber or 5 plumbing tips or whatever it is. And so that article won't move the needle because all AI is doing is pulling from sources it already has. And it doesn't actually add anything to Google. So Google doesn't even want to index it because it already has that information. Right? But business owners don't know that. And so that's the biggest problem with small business owners in AI is they just don't know enough and they don't ask enough questions in order to get to the point where they have to have it to where it's actually working for them. And so that being said, for smart business owners or more experienced business owners or business owners who know how to ask questions, such as myself, like we've built an internal tool that has helped us to reduce our headcount because now AI can do a better job of following our processes than a human can. And when it does that and it puts the creative aspect in it, it outputs things that are unbelievably great work. And I'll give you a good example, right? For us writing a blog, it used to cost us in the neighborhood of $500 to write one, and it would take about a week. Between doing the research, finding all the forums, looking at competitor websites and articles to figure out the heading structures, all of that, right? So it used to take about $500 in a week of time to do that. Now with AI, we can feed it the prompts. It can go out and look and do the research and do the deep research. And then it can pull our customer avatars that we've created for each client, and it can formulate how and the wording that it needs to use in order to be persuasive. And then it puts it into the structure because it's already pulled it. It knows what words we need to use and what densities and what places in order to pull it in. And then it can even create images with their people, their employees in those images that look real. Like, it blows my mind how well it
Or
works.
personalized. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that whole process now takes 12 minutes and 71 cents versus that $500 in a week. So our output has just, whatever it is, 1,000 times or whatever, public school math. But it's unbelievably more effective at us running our job and putting out better content for our clients and standing out against the competition that doesn't know what to do.
Right. Now, see, so thank you for explaining that. But I feel like there's a lot of business owners who are just trying to figure out where AI fits into their marketing strategy,
Mhm.
right? What's the biggest mistake you see them making when, they're trying to adopt AI?
Not enough inputs to get the appropriate output is going to be the number one. Like I said, garbage in versus garbage out. If you just go, hey, do this for me, it will do it, but it will do a very terrible job. And it will end up costing you a lot of time and a lot of money because it's not done correctly. And then you're going to go, this AI junk doesn't work. And then they're going to get frustrated and they might even shut down their business, right? Worst case scenarios. So that's still the biggest thing. But I'll give you an example of how well it can work. So not only on our example of what we've been doing and how we've done it, we were talking to a cardiologist. So just to let you know on how we built our own software, it cost us $270 in 4 weeks. Like, that was it. So that's unbelievably cheap compared to paying a developer, even 5 years ago, right? That would have been a freaking $500,000 project. So it's really crazy what you can do. But going back to the example, so I was talking to a cardiologist this week, and he goes, man, I have this big problem. So we're running all these EKGs, but they're being coded the wrong way, and they get bounced back, and then my team can't follow up with them, and there's so much that we just can't keep up. And he goes, I think it's costing me probably about $750,000 to $1 million a year in my pocket just because this isn't going correctly. And I go, hey, you could build an AI software that literally reads it, because we have optical character recognition now, and then it can follow your prompts of what you need to do in your guardrails, code it the right way, put it through a verification check, recode it if it's wrong, and then put it out in the format that you can submit to the insurance companies that will then pretty much guarantee that you get it put back right. And he goes, really? And I go, yeah.
Yes.
And so that's an example of how a small business owner, just from a small change, and again, if we did that, what we did on our product in 4 weeks and under $300, we can do the same on his and make him $500,000 a year, even if we're being conservative, $250,000 a year. Like, that's what a small business owner needs to do, and that's how they start integrating it into their business. It's not just the marketing side of things of write me this or research this. It's literally the whole aspect of every part of your business should be touched and efficiently redone by AI.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really interesting because you're not just looking at the technology aspect of it. You're looking at ROI aspect of it. Like, what can I help you put more money back in your pocket? How we get there, that's a whole different thing, right? Now, you're talking about building these agents. Do you have a team that's doing this, or how's that working on your operation side?
No, it was just like an hour a day working on it, and like, hey, I got a free hour. And then
You do it
AI,
yourself.
yeah,
Yeah.
assuming AI is fairly smart if you prompt it the right way. And so it'll give you the appropriate feedback that you need.
Yeah. So when you're thinking about scaling your own agency further, right? What's one operational bottleneck that tends to slow things down for you?
No, it's still people. People are the big bottleneck, although we're getting more efficient. AI is replacing a lot of jobs, but it's not replacing every job. So this is not like fear mongering, but it's still people, i.e., we're not yet at the point where AI can do sales. I feel like we still need that person to person touch just so it can kind of read and react. Although it's getting better, and maybe in another 6 months we'll be there. But right now, it's really hard to replace somebody who goes out and shakes a hand and says, "Hey, let's fix your problem." So that's always the biggest bottleneck. And then finding people who are motivated to do things is also, I feel like our world, our culture is shifting as far as work ethic goes, and so that's kind of hard to do because people are not as motivated by money as they used to be, and they're more motivated by lifestyle. At least what I have found. I don't know if you found it the same way, but we've been through dozens and dozens of people just on that very thing. So those are the big bottlenecks. It's still people, but we're efficiently scaling. And just giving you an example, we've since we've implemented AI in our business, we've taken our margins from 6-ish% to 60% in 2 years. So it's really incredible
That's
how much
massive
we can
growth.
do.
Yeah,
And our,
absolutely.
our revenue's grown with it. So not only are we making more money, we're keeping more money, which is really the game, right? It's keeping as much money as you can from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Okay, so now just kind of shifting our questions a little bit. So going back to just tying, between your agencies, your marketing expertise, and then your operations. After 20 years of in this space, right? What's one thing that you would tell a small business owner who's been burned by a marketing agency before? Because there's a lot of people out there who are doing this. So what would your pitch be specifically to your company?
Yeah, that's 100% of the work we do these days. Is not taking on a lot of startups. It's going back behind someone who's promised the world and underdelivered, and especially in the SEO space. Because, and here's the sad thing about SEO too. You can do everything right for 12 months, and then Google can be like, we want to change our minds, and they can change everything overnight. So even though you technically did everything right, you can still be wrong. So that's tough, kind of where we're at. But as far as businesses vetting marketing agencies, there's two ways to look at it. I've worked at a really, really big marketing agency. I'm the biggest automotive marketing agency in the world, where I was in management. And I took my section from losing 400,000 a year to making just under 2 million in 2 years. And we grew from 19 accounts to 120 accounts in 2 years. So I've seen the growth on that side of things. And then I've seen the growth on a small business side of things. And so there's two paths to consider when you're looking at marketing agencies. Do you want support a lot quicker, or do you want expertise support? Because they're two different things, right? So if you go with a big agency, they have tons of people who can reply to you within 5 minutes, but they're also hiring junior people who are right out of college, who might not have the expertise to look and diagnose something as quickly. That being said, they have systems in place and fallbacks that are supposed to help overcome that, but you're also likely to see a lot of churn. That's just the agency life. It's the way it works. The other side of things is the small business, the boutique agency side of things. So it might be a team of 1 to 5 people, but they might be very specialized in the industry that you're working on. So you have to figure out what's most important to you. And what I ultimately tell businesses at the end of the day, I don't care. They reply to me in 5 minutes. They can take 5 days as long as they're making me money, right? And so that's why it's really important to vet specialists and people who have the experience and people who have the processes in place in order to get you where you want to go. And that's the number one thing I look at is I ask every agency that we vet, because we still work with partners, I'm like, what do you measure and how do you measure it as success? Because you can tell how good someone is by the KPIs that they measure. And if they aren't measuring the right ones or the ones that are tied to revenue, then they're probably not the agency for you. Using us as an example. As an SEO agency, we try to tie everything back to revenue. How many phone calls did you get? How many form leads did you get? Everything else doesn't matter. Yes, it's nice to rank in keywords. Yes, it's nice to have 10x the amount of traffic. Those two things don't make you money. It's those two things, working with the right keywords, with the right traffic to drive a phone call or a form lead, that is going to make you money. So for people who are looking at SEO agencies, if they go, we'll get you listed number 1 in Google, it'd be like, yeah, great, but for what, right? And so you have to figure out what they track, and that will determine success. And so that's how we look at it. That's how I suggest small businesses look at it. What KPIs do they measure, and what are those successful outcomes?
Yeah, measurable outcomes, right? So it's not just, to your point, just driving traffic. Is it really meaningful traffic? Is it really making you money at the end of the day, right?
100%.
So I think that's the main question there. Sounds like you have built something incredible, and it's clear that your clients get really measurable results. You mentioned the goal for the business is to keep scaling and obviously helping more small business owners grow, right? Hypothetically, if you had a magic wand, right, to fix one thing in the business right now, that's either holding you back or slowing you down? I know you said people is one of the issues. What would that one thing be?
Yeah, it's gotta be people. It's
Gotta be
still going
people.
back to that. It's still gotta be people. It's finding the right salespeople to, be motivated in the right ways. It's finding the right people to help. So as part of being a business owner, right? One of the things that we look for are people who are entrepreneurs instead of entrepreneurs, right? And that was a term I wasn't even fully aware of until I started my own company. But those are the people who want to be an entrepreneur, but are risk adverse. And so those are the people who you have to hold back from doing things, even though, like here are your KPIs. These are your processes that you need to do. And then they go above and beyond and you go, whoa, 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 come back just a second. Right. And those are the entrepreneurs because they don't want to go off and start their own agency because they're afraid of risk. So those are the people that we have to look for. Instead of the entrepreneurs who are the ones that are generally in that role, who are those type A personalities who are like, I'll go do all this stuff. And then they do it really well. And they're like, you know what? I'll just do it for myself. And then they'll go take the risk. So it's finding those entrepreneurs and those right people. And that's always the thing that is the hardest to keep us from scaling. It was the hardest to keep our agency that I was working at, that marketing agency. It was the hardest thing we found there to keep it from scaling the way we wanted to. And then even when I was working as in the healthcare industry, I didn't have a team under me, but I still saw everyone that they were hiring all the time. I was part of the management team, and it was the same deal there. It was hard finding the right people who were motivated enough to do the work. And so that's the magic wand, right? If you could just take the stack of resumes and go bippity boppity boo, and then there's only 5 left, that would magically scale the company, finding those
Yeah,
right people.
absolutely. Sorry, just to add to that. So how many people do you have in your company right now? And what is the targeted goal that you're trying to accomplish by the end of the year?
Yeah, we have 2 full-time. We let go of all of our full-time staff, and we have about 25 different contractors that we use at any given time to fulfill all the contracts that we have. As far as what we're looking to do, probably not bringing on too much. So this is kinda getting a little bit deeper, but my daughter has told us on known circumstances that she ever wants a boyfriend or a girlfriend or having kids or anything like that, and that's the only one that we have. And so it dawned on me about 2 years ago, what's the point of building generational wealth if it dies with the next generation who doesn't appreciate it? And so instead of building a 20 million or $50 million agency now, that's just not what I'm motivated by or interested in, but it's building that lifestyle business where I can do what I want, be free, financially free, go take vacations when I want, and we're getting there. And then it's just having enough to retire on for the rest of our lives comfortably, which I know those numbers. And so it's working up to there. So if we 5X our company, like sell the company tomorrow and then you'll never see or hear from James ever again, right? It's that type of thing. And so what does that realistically look like? Maybe by the end of the year, adding 1 or 2 headcount, adding another 10 or 15 contractors, getting the lead gen going a little bit more predictable, just because we have that salesperson who's there to take more of those calls. So that's kind of what we're looking at in our growth goals. And that was a huge major revelation for me too about a couple of years ago of why am I going to kill myself working 18-hour days if at the end of it, the end of everything, like the time horizon, stretch it out, if it doesn't mean anything. So
Absolutely. I think those are true words of wisdom because a lot of us lose sight of that, right? Especially small business owners. We're like, oh, we got to do this. We do have to work 18 to 20 hours a day. No, you don't, right? Look at that bigger picture. And then I always tell people, I'm like, work backwards from what your end goal is, right?
mm,
And then you can actually make a roadmap of how you're going to get there without killing yourself. So
yeah,
that's really good. Really good words
absolutely.
of
Nobody
wisdom.
on their deathbed ever said they wish they worked more either.
Exactly. Okay, so we're coming to the end of our podcast here. What are some parting thoughts for our audience, and how do people actually get in touch with you if they're interested in your services?
Well, parting thoughts, that's big and broad. You can do it. The one thing about being an entrepreneur that I was totally unaware of when we started and that I wish someone could have prepared me for a little bit more, so hopefully this will help your audience, is the entrepreneur roller coaster. And I didn't realize what that was when I started. So just to explain the concept, businesses go in waves. Everything goes in waves. Look at the stock market. It goes in waves, right? Everything goes in waves and businesses fall on that trajectory. So one day you're going to start off, you're going to sell 2 or 3 clients and you're going to be on top of the world. And then 1 or 2 of those clients are going to drop and you're going to go, oh my God, how do I pay my mortgage? And then all of a sudden, because of that work, you have a case study that's put together that somebody saw and they're like, you know what? I want to do business with you. And they'll pay you more money than those previous companies. And then you go, and you're back up and you're like, oh my God, this is so great. And then ultimately churn happens or an employee quits or something happens and you're, oh my God, I'm going to lose my business. business. And so you go through this roller coaster and it gets less and less on the hills as you go up because it builds on itself. But that was what I was completely unprepared for when we started our business. So just know that there will be bad times in the business just as well as there will be good times. And as long as you do the boring stuff over and over and over again, every single day, you can predictably know that you're going to get out of the valleys and go back to a peak. And when you're in your peak, save your money because you're going to go back into a valley. Or instead of saving your money, invest your money into marketing because marketing is literally the only way to grow your business. And then that way your peaks and valleys become a lot more predictable and a lot less dramatic. So that would be the biggest piece of advice that I would give entrepreneurs who might need it to hear that, who are just starting out on their journey. It takes a lot of fortitude. As far as where people can find us, if you like what I have to say, you can find us at our website, marketingillumination.com. You can get a hold of us there. Our phone number's on the site. We have a YouTube channel that we try to publish content on just to help people out with different concepts of marketing, sales. Sales, I think, is the most undereducated aspect of anything in the world. And so we try to push that a little bit as well.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. I really learned a lot. I talked to a lot of SEO agency owners, a lot of digital marketing companies, but it's really important to have different perspectives. So thank you so much for really walking our audience through that entire journey. I think that's very meaningful. Thank you again for your
My
time, and
pleasure.
we look forward to speaking with you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Have a good rest of your day. Bye.
You too.